There have been some incredible seasons of competition throughout the history of the World Rally Championship. Some that come to mind are 2001 and 1986, with the wide range of manufacturers going for the title, 1983 with the iconic dogfight between Audi and Lancia, and 1998 with possibly the greatest season finale ever. While each and every year is of course filled with high-speed thrills and some amazing driving, for me, the greatest season of the World Rally Championship was 1995. Here is how it went down. The early 1990s had been a pretty big turning point in the evolution of the World Rally Championship. The abolishment of Group B in the mid-1980s was now way back in the rearview mirror, and Group A had since proved that, despite being of a lower class, it was by no means a lesser form of competition. Despite Italian manufacturer Lancia dominating the WRC since the introduction of Group A in 1987 all the way up to 1992, something interesting was occurring. The Japanese were slowly proving that they too might have a certain skill when it comes to the sport. Toyota, with their Celica, was able to unseat Lancia for the title with back-to-back wins in 1993 and 94, and other Japanese manufacturers like Mitsubishi and Subaru were beginning to bare their teeth as well. Subaru especially were firing on all cylinders with their rallying campaign. In 1990, Subaru had begun campaigning their large sedan, the Legacy, in both the World Rally and British Rally Championships, piloted by world-class drivers such as Colin. In 1991, they also signed on an up-and-coming driver from Scotland for their efforts in the British Rally Championship, called Colin Mcrae. Mcrae had been interested in rally racing from an early age, and in his pre-WRC competition days would race in cars such as the Mini Cooper, the Hillman Avenger GT, the Talbot Sunbeam and the Vauxhall Nova. Even in these early years, Mcrae was noted for his incredible speed and more feisty style of driving, with many drawing comparisons to Flying Finn Ari Vatanen, someone who Mcrae personally idolised. Mcrae's first WRC event would be at the 1987 Swedish Rally, and in 1988 he would take victory at the Scottish Rally Championship.
After just 15 stages, he'd made it into the top 10, making it a father and son for the first time in the leadership of an international rally.
However, his big breakthrough did come with Subaru. After pushing the Legacy to victory in the British Rally Championship in both 1991 and 1992, the ProDrive team decided to sign him up full-time to compete for Subaru in the WRC. This rather coincided with Subaru finally debuting their Impreza for the first time. After Mcrae himself was able to push the Legacy to victory in the 1993 Rally New Zealand, Subaru was convinced to go all in and go for the title. 1994 was a good year for Subaru. They placed second overall, just 11 points behind winners Toyota with 3 event victories in total, and Mcrae would place fourth despite being excluded from Rally Acropolis. This brings us to 1995. Both Subaru and Mcrae were now nicely settled with the Impreza and were going in with all guns blazing. Opposing them would be 3 other major teams. Toyota going for their hat-trick world title in their newly introduced Celica GT4 ST205, Mitsubishi who were now racing their Lancer Evo 2, and Ford who had recently introduced their iconic Escort RS Cosworth. Mcrae also had some fierce competition on the driver's side. Mitsubishi had recently signed on flying Finn Tommi Mäkinen alongside longtime Mitsubishi driver Kenneth Eriksson. Toyota had some top talents such as Juha Kankkunen and Didier Auriol, who had taken the driver's title in 1993 and 1994 respectively. And even on Mcrae's own team he had competition in the form of Carlos Sainz, otherwise known as El Matador. Sainz was by no means just another face in the sport. He was the world champion in both 1990 and 1992, also coming second in both 1991 and 1994. His skill and experience had been of great use during the development of the Infraction rally car. This was going to be a heated competition, this year to be raced over 8 rounds across Europe and Oceania, an unusually low showing it must be said. It was of note that in 1994 the FIA had introduced a round rotation system, whereby certain rounds would either be excluded or downgraded from WRC status year by year. In 1994 Sweden had lost its spot in the roster, but this year fan favourite Finland was out. Still, in late January of 1995, the season began. As per the usual, the championship would start in the icy and iconic mountains of Monte Carlo. Another thing that was changed this year were regulations on services and restrictions on tyre changes, the latter being something that was strongly noticed on a rally like Monte Carlo, where tyres can be the difference between a win or a retirement. While Mcrae was able to pick up a lead pretty quickly, he would end up retiring after hitting a patch of black ice despite it being cautioned. Sainz would then pick up the lead for the remainder of the rally, and despite a spin or two, would take victory here for the first event of the season.
At the end everything was working okay, the car was good, the tires were good, and we have no problems, and everything was perfect.
Francois Delacour, racing the Scot RS Cosworth for the RAS Ford team, would place second, and Kankkunen would take third in the Celica GT4. Despite a seemingly upgraded car, the Toyota drivers were finding it difficult to adjust to the new Celica. The FIA had reduced turbo restrictor sizes, thereby reducing power, and there were also reported problems with handling throughout the rally too. Whether this could be adjusted to in the coming stages would remain to be seen. Still, it was now time for Kankkunen's personal favourite event of the year, the even icier roads of Sweden. Conditions were said to be perfect this year, with solid ice throughout most of the stages. Perhaps this could be where Toyota were able to pull back to equalise with frontrunners Subaru. However, it would be Mitsubishi who would run away in the lead this time, with Eriksson and Mäkinen posting times leagues above anyone else.
Outright fastest on 8 of the opening 18 special stages, Eriksson is definitely at home in his home country.
Subaru would then find themselves completely on their rears when all 3 factory cars of Mcrae, Sainz and Swede Mats Johnson had to retire when all 3 cars suffered the same failure, the coating coming off the cylinder liners which jammed the oil pumps, therefore leading to a huge spike in oil pressure, killing the engine. Mcrae would cite the new rules which reduced service time dramatically as the reason the Subarus all failed. Mitsubishi, however, had pulled ahead considerably, and team leader Andrew Cowan ordered the 2 drivers to hold their position to guarantee a 1-2 podium, giving Eriksson the victory and Mäkinen second.
We decided that that was enough, and we would now, hold the position and get to the finish. There was too much risk for them to be driving flat out today against each other.
Thomas Radstrom would follow in third in the Celica. Both Mitsubishi and Mäkinen had secured themselves the lead as the season headed south for Portugal for round 3. After their abysmal showing in Sweden, Subaru knew that this round would be key if they were going to get back in the running. There were theories that Subaru had actually detuned their engines after the incidents in the snow, but if so, it didn't seem to have much of an impact on performance. Sainz's Subaru and Kankinen's Toyota would trade first throughout the special stages, with Kankinen being 22 seconds up at one point.
At last it seems to be coming good for Toyota. The Celica is on the pace, it's got the power and it's got the handling they've been seeking for over a year.
The Toyotas look very powerful today. Where's the extra power from?
I don't know, it's from here maybe.
However, Sainz was able to claw back the time, and despite a branch cutting the brake lines on his Subaru during the final stage, leaving him with just his rear brakes for the remainder of the rally, he took his second victory of the season ahead of Kankinen.
A branch or something, and the branch broke the pipe, and then it was no chance. I thought we were going to lose.
With Mcrae in third and emerging talent Richard Burns taking 7th, Subaru and Sainz had now snatched their lead back. And so come the tightly woven roads of the Tour de Corse, and it was fair to say that this was Auriol's event, as he had won there 5 times previously. However, as the rally was set in motion, it was Ford's Bruno Thierry who was taking a sizable lead over the pack, with teammate Delacour following closely behind.
Yes, I am very happy in the moment. You know, it is the first time on my life to be in the leading. Yes.
Auriol was trailing by over half a minute in his Celica, the only Toyota to be competitive in this round. Towards the end, Thierry had been able to build himself an almost 1 minute lead over second, but unfortunately for him, a lost wheel nut ended his rally pretty quickly. The changed rules, which disallowed the mechanics to fix the problem, had claimed its biggest victim yet, which would have been the highlight of the Belgian driver's career.
Officially, it's only a refuelling point. That means that Thierry has to carry out any maintenance himself.
With the frontrunner out, Auriol claimed his record 6th win in Corsica and the GT4's first WRC win. Thierry's teammate Delacour picked up 2nd, and Italian driver Andrea Agini would place 3rd in the newly introduced Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 3. Round 5 brought the competition to the North Island of New Zealand, a battleground where Mcrae finally had a shot of pulling back the championship in his favour, as it was an event he had won in the past 2 years. The Impreza 2, with its shorter wheelbase, was perfectly balanced for the wet gravel and numerous switchbacks. However, unfortunately for Subaru, Sainz was out due to a mountain biking accident. Mcrae, Burns and local driver Possum Bourne would have to take up the Spaniard's slack. However, with the addition of the Imprezas being fitted with an active centre differential, this might not be such a difficult exploit. While Kankinen was able to storm into the lead early on, a slip off a tight right-hander ended his dominance pretty quickly.
Oi vittu saat.
Se on
Perkele mä kuulin väärin nuotin koota, mä en kuullut koota.
You don't need to be an expert in Finnish to realise that there was something wrong with the pace notes.
And Mcrae stormed into the lead, over 35 seconds ahead of second place Auriol. As predicted, Mcrae was easily able to take his 3rd New Zealand victory, matching Sainz's record of 3 wins too.
Colin, you had another incredible performance over the Moto. How do you do it?
I don't know, if I told you then everyone would know the secret.
However, with Auriol, Kankinen and Schwarz taking 2nd, 3rd and 4th respectively, Toyota were finally able to snatch the manufacturer lead away from Mitsubishi, though Subaru was not trailing too far behind in 3rd. Round 6 remained down under in the land of Australia. This had the potential of being anyone's show. Mcrae and Auriol had both won here previously, though Kankinen, with 4 previous wins, was looking to be the more equal of the bunch.
I don't know, somehow this road suit very well to my driving style and I like it.
And he was the one to gain an early lead. By the end of the opening leg, he'd been able to build up a 17-second lead over Mcrae, and the 2 Evos trailed not far behind him. However, Subaru's hopes of coming out of 3rd place in the championship were shot down here, as both Bourne, who crashed out on the 3rd stage, and newly returning Sainz, whose radiator was broken by a branch, were both forced to retire, leaving Subaru's hopes solely in the hands of Mcrae. Kankkunen, meanwhile, had lost his lead to Ericsson due to aforementioned problems with suspension, which were reportedly stiffening up on him, giving him an uncomfortable ride to say the least.
As the car's suspension got stiffer, it gave Kankkunen and Grist a very rough ride indeed. But he still pressed on right on the limit.
In the end, with some fine driving from Ericsson and a few spins from the Scot, Mitsubishi were able to claim their second victory of the season, with Mcrae in second and Kankkunen relegated to third. Ericsson's win also pushed Mitsubishi back into the race, just 5 points down on Toyota. While Subaru themselves were still struggling to catch up, Mcrae's first and second in the last 2 rounds had put him not only ahead of teammate Sainz, who was now in 4th, but also just 7 points behind championship leader Kankkunen. As the competition headed into the final 2 stages, everything was very much still to play for. Round 7 was on the warm tarmac stages of Catalunya, the home of Sainz, and he of course was the favourite to win. However, with him down in 4th and Mcrae in 2nd, this round would be key for both drivers if either of them wanted a chance at the podium. The sibling rivalry was truly hotting up, however it would again be Kankkunen who would charge to the top of the leaderboard, slowly building up a lead of over 1 minute. However, after flying off a road partway through, the Finn would be out. He wasn't the only driver with problems though. Both Fords would suffer issues, Thierry's Escort being out due to a hub problem, and Delacour was down on power, though he would manage to limp to 4th. Tommy Mäkinen would have the most spectacular end to the rally, crashing his Evo into an ambulance on the sidelines. Subaru, however, were faring much better. Sainz and Mcrae were leading the rally with a 1-2.
The young Scot with Derek Ringer on the pace notes is driving an absolute stormer.
However, then came a move that would sour the upcoming victory. ProDrive team boss David Richards ordered the two to freeze their positions, and as Sainz was leading the pair, he would be given the win. Mcrae was furious, and even when team officials tried to wave him down on stage, he continued to barrel past them at the limit, refusing to throw in the towel.
We're fighting for the championship, why should I have to finish second? Eh?
However, he would later give in and take a time penalty in a service to reserve himself to second. Still, with the duo taking a 1-2 and Subaru's third Andrea Aghini taking third, the Subaru team had taken their first complete podium, which firmly cemented them back into the championship fight. Plus, with Mcrae's second place finish, he and Sainz were heading into the final round on an equal 70 points, setting up an exciting finale. Despite this team feud seeming to be the most important issue of the rally, something else was about to eclipse whatever was happening at Subaru. A rather large bombshell was about to be dropped. Toyota's management were called up for questioning after officials had done some checks on the Celicas after suspicions were aroused about their performance. It turns out that Toyota had been using illegal turbo restrictor mechanisms on their cars. The restrictor would, when fitted, allow a small bypass to open up, allowing air to enter the turbo intake around the seals on the restrictor. On top of this, while the turbo was engaged, the mechanism would move the restrictor plate back a few inches, hence completely nullifying its effects. When disengaged, the mechanism would spring the restrictor back into place as if nothing was out of the ordinary. This insanely complicated and well-manufactured trick allowed 25% more air to enter the turbo and gave the car reportedly extra 50 horsepower, which is a significant amount to say the least. Even upon inspection, the judges could not see evidence of any extra air entering the turbo, but with some more scrutiny, the whole operation was uncovered. The head of the FIA, Max Mosley, went on to call it the most sophisticated device he'd ever seen in 30 years of motorsports. Punishment was swift. Toyota was stripped of their points, and all drivers who were supposedly unaware of the cheat were excluded from the championship. Toyota was then banned from the WRC for the rest of the season and the 1996 season on top of that. All of a sudden, a major contender for both Subaru and Mitsubishi was out. The two were very closely tied, so the final event truly was going to be a showstopper. The 8th and final round brings us to the muddy forest roads of the RAC Rally in the UK. It was a difficult stage that took its fair share of victims year on year, so it was all to play for. A single mistake could end the year-long run. While Mackinnon was able to lead in his Mitsubishi early on, he was quickly forced to retire after hitting a rock, allowing the two Subaru drivers to front run. However, it wasn't an easy time for them either. Mcrae had a puncture after he too hit a rock that lost him 2 minutes.
Kenneth did exactly the same in the same rock. He didn't think it was a problem either, so I don't know what's happened. The Pirelli guys can't really, they don't have an answer, so it's just unlucky really.
And Sainz almost had his radiator boil over after pushing the Impreza to its limit on the longest stage of the entire championship, Pundershaw, at a whopping 36 miles long. Even the Ford team was struggling, with Thierry's rear brakes catching fire, again after the Pundershaw stage. Going into the final leg though, with Mcrae and Sainz at the top with just 17 seconds between them, and with Burns also putting in a good charge, Subaru were beginning to take control of the leaderboard yet again. And it was at this point that arguably Mcrae drove his best, absolutely to and beyond the limit on every stage, and put in a near perfect run on the final leg of the year, with each corner and straight becoming part of some sort of mechanical ballet. The hundreds of thousands of spectators lining the track see Mcrae go absolutely flat out. Carlos Sainz pretty quickly realised that the game was up. He said that he could literally not go any faster, and the Scotsman was able to not only take his first place in the rally, but first in the championship.
And 6 crest 50 to stop. Yes, spot on.
And became the first British World Rally Champion and the youngest World Rally Champion, a record that still stands as one of the most impressive to this day. Plus, with Subaru taking their first, second and third, they were able to safely secure their first manufacturer's title, an achievement which really put the small Japanese manufacturer on the map. A question I've seen being asked a few times before is, why do people call Colin Mcrae the greatest rally driver of all time? He has only ever won a single driver's title. Surely there's better out there. While this is of course a subjective opinion to hold, I think it is important to acknowledge the fact that a quantitative amount of victories is not the be-all and end-all when discussing a driver's merits. Mcrae brought a real element of entertainment to the sport. Arguably the thing most associated with him is the phrase "if in doubt, flat out," and it's clear to see that in action during his 1995 career. Even when prospects looked bleak with team management trying to slow him down and the Impreza beginning to flounder under the hard driving, the Scotsman would always push through and has provided us all with some of the greatest rally driving we will likely ever see. Thanks for watching.